2, 1.
Well, good evening and welcome to Jim's Table Topics. This is our December 2021 show. So this is, we're winding up 2021. Who would know that we're going into year 3 of COVID confusion, but here we are. I had to wear my mask on the way in. But here we are. So again, I just want to let you know that today's show we're going to be talking about free speech, okay? Even though this is a December show and it's Christmas, Merry Christmas, I love Christmas. And so basically I'm going to do a little deep dive on the Christmas themes, the Christian Christmas, and that will cover it as the normal format as I do this introduction. Then I'll go into the good news, and then we'll have 3 videos today that talk about free speech and the wokeness of it all and the indoctrination of what's going on in the schools, okay? I mean, I'd like to stay in the Christmas mode, but we will have to eventually get back to what's going on in the real world. But we really need to take more time, and I know we all have to make an effort to refocus our time and efforts, so we can be more, I have my priority of God, family, and country, and sometimes God will always be first, but, sometimes the priority of family and other things that we need to do to support the family get to be a little conflicting, shall we say. Yeah? That's where the conflict of interest come in. Everybody thinks that, certain things need to be done in order for, but so that's why we always have to have little family meetings and make sure we're all on the same page. Are we all on the same page? Sometimes I wonder if, our neighbors, our community, this town, this state, this country, are we all on the same page? I don't think so. But we do have that, it's funny, I think about this every now and then. Like there are certain blood tests, they have Ancestry.com. You can take the DNA sample and they can kind of tell. I got that for Christmas a few years ago and I sent it in, and so it could tell that I was, of European descent, and it actually came back that, I was up in the, towards Poland and up that way because I'm half Polish, and the Italian side. So I'm 50% and they got it. But there is no blood test to be an American when you think about it, right? Because this is the melting pot. This is where everyone came to escape King George and to escape the tyrants in their countries. And so this was our free zone. This was the global free zone. And the globalists don't like it. And so they're tightening the noose around our freedoms. As you can very well see, our freedoms, we used to have what we call common law. That was the mode of operation for America, the Blackstone commentaries on the law. You could read that in and out. And it was very simply put, so anybody could understand it. Basically, every case is different. Now we have precedents, but before, in common law, it was, every case is different, and you had to hear all the evidence, and then you would make a decision based on what a normal, prudent person would do under these sets of circumstances, okay? And so that's how the jury would be instructed to make, but that's not what they do now. Now, in fact, there's a citizens, the Citizens Rule Book. If you Google that, Citizens Rule Book, you can get a copy. It's got a copy of the Constitution, copy of the Declaration of Independence, and basically it kind of has a little introduction of how all, the form of our government, which is a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We are a republic, and it's a constitutional republic, and it's a democratic constitutional republic, meaning that we don't have monarchs and people in charge forever that voted, and that was the whole idea, to have citizen-run government. Now we have professional government. They won't let anybody in. Look at Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and all of them. they got in there. They've been in there for 30, 40 years. They're not the solution. They are the problem. Same with Mitch McConnell. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. The longer they stay in, the worse they get. So again, we have to try to focus in on what's going on. So without further ado, I mean, I probably trampling on all my other stuff. I think I'm just going to start talking to the slides, and like I said, we're going to talk about Christmas. So we go to the first slide there, and again, it's all about Christmas, and so I like to focus on the Christmas season because it's a good time to just focus on the good news and not all the fake news we have to put up with. Millions of people around the globe, everyone celebrates Christmas and the holidays different. I mean, technically, we're in the middle of, I like to call it the holiday hat trick. We have Thanksgiving. Hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. And then we're going to slide here into Christmas. And then there's Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and several other different holidays that, pick one, whichever one you celebrate. And then there's New Year's. Okay, so that's the hat trick as we end the year. And so we should be able to, generate some hope and love and enthusiasm to get us into 2022. 2022. I have to get used to saying that because that's right around the corner. And again, as part of the Christmas season, they have Advent. This is the Advent candles that they have, and they light one each week as we get to the Christ candle, which is this is lit on Christmas Day, but the 4 weeks before, we focus on the hope of Christmas, the peace of Christmas, the joy of Christmas, and the love. And we should all be focusing on those key ingredients of our lives, and that's what we're talking about. Okay, I got to remember to shrink it back down before I go to the next one. Okay, so again, I kind of talked about this stuff. We're going to be talking about free speech. That's the name of the show, and talk about Christmas. This Christmas picture is from Danvers Square back in the 50s. You can tell because there's a 1957 Chevy right there. And if you look at that a little closely, you can see it says Route 35 to Topsfield, Georgetown, go that way. And there's the First National used to be there, Woolworths, and then the Danvers National Bank was there. And very quiet, peaceful, very peaceful. Nice time of the year. And so as we get into Christmas, I like to focus on, like I said, my priority list is and these first three slides just nail it right together. I focus on God first. I try to focus on God. What would Jesus do? And what am I doing to make things better, not worse? And then family, the Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, family dinners. And just being with family and knowing and loving, the kids, the grandkids, and all my brothers and sisters, and the whole crew. And we adopt everyone too. My grandkids have friends, and their friends are technically my grandkids. And my kids have friends, and technically their kids are my daughters and stuff. They used to be like that, and because that's the way we should treat people. And then finally, country. God, family, and country. I just thought this was kind of interesting, little army tank decked out for Christmas. But those are the priorities, and again, and in the Christian tradition, for unto us a child is born. This is Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 6, and there's a lot of because it's a Christian holiday, it comes to us right out of the Bible, and for a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. And again, that's from Isaiah 9:6. And so these Bible verses are very important because they prophesize the fact that there will be a Messiah coming, and hundreds, if not thousands, of years before it happened. And so, have a blessed Christmas. Rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice in the coming of our Lord. And this will be a sign for you. you will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And this is Luke chapter 2, verse 12. And Matthew chapter 1, verses 21 through 23. Let me see. Okay. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save the people from their sins. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which, being interpreted, is God with us. And so those are the biblical verses that kind of talk about the prophecy and the fulfillment of prophecy. And here's another one. Glory to God in the highest, and on peace, Merry Christmas in Matthew 1 through 25. The angels said to the shepherds, Do not be afraid, for behold, I proclaim to you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. For today in the city of David a Savior has been born for you, who is Christ and Lord. And again, these are the biblical verses, and I wanted to highlight this fact that I have a Bible at home. I meant to bring it. I forgot a few things now that I'm halfway through the show here. I forgot some things at home, but I had a Bible, and basically it's what they call a prophecy Bible, and it's the same Bible, but in the Old Testament, when you read in the Old Testament a prophecy, they put a star there. It's a hollow star, just the outline of the star. And so when you read that verse and it's got a star, it tells you that this is a prophecy. And then it points you to the book and the chapter and the verse of where the prophecy was fulfilled. And then you go, so when you're reading the New Testament and you're reading the fulfillment of the prophecies, there's a star there that's filled in, so it's a solid star. So, and then it will point you back to the Old Testament prophecy that prophesies that this would happen. And so there's a couple of hundred of prophecies that were fulfilled that were in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. They were thousands of years apart. So I just find that really interesting. There's a lot of skeptics and people who don't believe, and but again, we are where we are with this. We all have to make a choice and decide what we're going to believe and how we're going to live our lives, and that's it. You take all the information in. Some people try to hide some of the information, which we'll talk about, otherwise known as wokeness, cancellation, and whatever else they call it today. But when they saw the star, they rejoiced. Matthew 10. And again, I just peel these things off the web, and I didn't even notice that this was actually a family card, a Christmas card sent by the Anderson family, actually Matthew, Connor, and Taylor, and Guinevere. So I thought that was good, But again, which it just kind of reminded me, I pulled this out because of the Star Bible that has the prophecies prophesized and then the prophecy fulfilled. And they're correlated, and you can go back and forth and read the prophecy and the fulfillment of the prophecy, and it's good. A lot of people say the Bible contradicts itself, but there's a lot of people that, we could have a long discussion about that. But I think in several shows back, I did talk about, there are several Christian apologists, biblical scholars, whatever you want to call it, and two of them I'll mention that I know specifically, and one was Josh McDowell. He wrote More Than a Carpenter, and so that's Josh McDowell, More Than a Carpenter. That's probably back in the 80s or 90s he did that. And then there was, losing my train of thought here. It was, That's why I should have notes. But at any rate, Mere Christianity was what he wrote. And basically both Josh McDowell and this other guy whose name I'm not remembering were critics. They were outspoken critics, and they went to write these books to disprove the existence of God. And with all their research and all the documentation, they finally figured out, oh, I'm wrong, God's right, this stuff is right, this is real. So we all have to do our homework. Those two guys did it, they did it for you. So if you read Mere Christianity and Josh McDowell's More Than a Carpenter, you can kind of get the gist of the reality of the Christian faith. And then you have to make a decision, that's all. Good, bad, or indifferent. You either believe it or you don't. And then you live and live by it. Your principles, your morals, and your decisions. And because we are a sum total of our decisions. Okay, so we're going to have to leave the good news now, and we'll go into the fake news and what's going on. I'll try to highlight some of the things that is going on. But again, keep parents out of the classrooms. That was the whole talking points there back in the Virginia governor race that happened, a couple of 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, whenever it happened, and I thought it was kind of funny that I was watching. I try not to watch too much of the fake news, but I'm listening to these guys talking, and they're saying, "Well, there seems to be no big outcry anymore about keeping parents out of the classroom, and all the parents upset about being taught woke and the school committees and all this stuff." And this is when people yell at the TV screen and say, "Well, yeah, that's because you're not reporting it." So if you don't report it, then that means it doesn't exist, right? Because that's what happens. It's happening. It's happening in Danvers. People are upset about what the school committees do and don't do, what they tell you, what they don't tell you. There are things happening. And so just because they don't report it doesn't mean that there's not an issue. Okay, so that's why we have to go further. In fact, apparently they're labeling truth now as conspiratorial theorists, right? And the way the reports came out about this whole Keep Virginia Blue, and it was a big red wave, they called the lieutenant governor, who now I never remember her name, I'm going to remember last time, Winsome Sears. She's the lieutenant governor, she's a woman, and she's black, and they called her a white supremacist. Again, because the fake news is never wrong, they always know exactly what they're talking about, and we get the truth no matter what. Right. And so getting back to school committees, these little memes are cute. They're cute. Huh? If you have to hide the curriculum from the parents of your students, you don't belong in a classroom or close to the proximities of anyone's kids. Okay, so we need to find out what they're teaching the kids. Apparently during this whole 2 years, now year 3 of COVID, when we did the Zoom classes, the parents saw all this woke critical race theory stuff and everything that's being taught, and it's not a pretty picture. And the kids are not being given a fair shake in their education. The Sound of Music was a classic movie, okay? And part of that, the whole theme of that was the fact that Nazi Germany was taking over Austria and demanding that everyone follow the Nazi regime. Well, the Von Trapp family said, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to. And here's a picture of the cast, right? So one of these girls who was in the Von Trapp family out front, there was several boys and the girls. One of these little Nazi brown shirts was in love with this girl. But when the whole family was escaping Austria to get away from the Nazis because they wouldn't serve Hitler, even though he loved his girl, and he knew the family and they treated him like a son, he blew the whistle on him and called the Nazis to come and arrest him. Okay, so So that's what. Oh, if you see something, say something. That's what we're coming to, folks, right? And who's the domestic terrorist? I guess let's ask Merrick Garland. Okay, but again, we need to find out what the kids are learning in school. Okay, so should public college students be required to take a class on the Constitution in order to graduate? I think it would be a good idea. You know, we can't keep your freedom if you don't know where you get your freedom from. You know, these are our God-given rights. The government's here to protect our God-given rights. The government doesn't own the rights. They're to protect them. And again, this, you know, talking about what the kids are being taught in school, this Project 1619, I don't know if you've heard about it, but, you know, this whole thing is all about critical race theory and saying that America started in 1619 and we were the worst slave owners and the worst people in the world. But it's all, you know, you talk about fake news and fake history. Well, this whole Project 1619, everyone's running away from it, but this is what they've been brought into the schools. This is what they've been teaching. And they haven't been teaching the we the people, where our rights come from. Our rights are identified in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And the Constitution is the law of the land. The Declaration of Independence explains why we did what we did and why we need to do that. In fact, the Declaration of Independence clearly states that we are endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights. So our unalienable rights are unalienable. The government can't take them away, your neighbors, some other no, they're God-given, and the government's here to protect that so that you can exercise your freedom, and it's not happening. They're taking away our rights day by day, and it doesn't look like much, but we need to understand that that's the only thing that's keeping us free, is our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. I mean, even George Washington said this back then: if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led, like sheep to the slaughter. This is exactly why political correctness is so dangerous. And what is political correctness is an old term. We're woke now. We're woke. Okay? So what is woke? Woke is a state of awareness only achieved by those dumb enough to find injustice in everything except their own behavior. I mean, you know, we really need to take a step back from all this wokeness and try to figure out what's right, what's wrong, and be magnanimous. We'll go back to the Declaration of Independence. That in the Declaration of Independence, it talks about men and leaders being magnanimous. And magnanimous means doing what's right no matter how unpopular it is, no matter how much bullying you have to endure. You do what's right and you suffer the consequences instead of kowtowing and just going along with the flow. And that's what we're doing here now, people. If that's what's happening, people are being bullied into doing things they don't want to do, but they have to do it. Everyone makes that one little compromise. Oh, I don't think those vaccines are good, but I'm going to take it because I need my job. I don't want to take the vaccine, but I'm going to take it because I want to go traveling on the airplane, or they want to do this, or whatever excuse, okay? And so, and it's just, well, we won't get into it. Okay, here we go here. You know, again, when you look at what's going on in the schools, if you accept restrictions on free speech for any reason, it means you didn't have an education, you had an indoctrination. Because if we were being taught where our rights came from, what our rights are, no one would ever accept any restrictions on free speech. But it's happening on, you know, we started out in the 1960s, free speech was our battle cry, right? And now in 2017, Berkeley and all these colleges that were the bastions of free speech are now shutting down all conservative speech. Liberals and woke only spoke here. Yeah, you can talk all day long. You can lie, you can cheat, you can steal, it doesn't matter. But if you're a conservative or a Republican, no, they shut them down. They will not allow them to speak. I'm surprised. They've already shut down 3 of my videos, but that's okay. And again, free speech is free speech. Well, we already want to. And again, so, you know, another classic movie, you know, Toto pulls the curtain on the Wizard of Oz because he's, hey, you know, I'm the great, powerful Wizard of Oz. No, you're a man using all this high-tech stuff to scare people into doing what you want. And scaring these people into doing what he wanted because he didn't know how to handle the situation. Okay? And that's what the Facebook jail, that's what all our high-tech people are doing. And that's what our videos are going to show. We're going to be coming up on them pretty soon, about 5 minutes. Going as fast as I can. But Facebook jail, you know, and then it's just not Facebook. It's Facebook, it's Google, it's YouTube and Twitter, you know, and they're out to squelch all conservative speech, and it's crazy. And so we really need to stop and figure out, again, are we being educated? Are we being reported the facts? Or are we being indoctrinated and lied to? Okay? So you got to figure that out for yourself. But I'll tell you right now, if you think, as Senator Rand Paul, who was beat to a pulp and broken ribs and had to go to the hospital because his neighbor is a woke person who doesn't like conservatives. It's a hate crime. No, only one way, I guess. If you think a voter ID is racist, but a vaccine passport is just fine, you need some serious help thinking through your public policy, because these two just contradict each other as far as freedoms and rights go. Okay. And again, you know, we talk about certain things, right? Like voter ID, oh, it's racist and this and that. Actually, a lot of black people that I see, conservatives, black talk show hosts, that, you know, they think it's insulting and condescending to say that, you don't think that black people drink, they don't have IDs, they don't drive cars with IDs? We all have IDs. Everybody needs an ID to do anything in America. You can't get on a plane, you can't drive a car, you can't buy booze. You must be 21 to purchase alcohol. It's the law. ID required. Now, how many times have you seen that? Right? So, whoops. And I got another one here too. Yep. Yes, right. Legal drinking age. Be prepared to show ID. Must be 21. Doesn't matter how old you look. They want to see your ID. Okay, so we're going to go to the videos in about 3 minutes. But so I want to talk about. So we're going to see 3 videos. Be brave. We have to stop and look at what's going on, and we have to confront the lies and things, and we have to push back. We have to straighten out what's being done and do what's right. And then, does free speech offend you? We really need to stop and think about what's going on with free speech. And then we're talking about big tech and big brother and how they're squelching our free speech. And so these 3 videos, back to back, they're from PragerU. So if you go to PragerU, just as it's spelled, as it's, you know, P-R-A, let's see, let me get it right here. PragerU, PRAGERU.com. So if you go to PragerU, you can find these 5-minute videos. It's quick, you know. If you want to look at a subject, they got tons of things in there. So if you, like, I've put on videos of electoral college, voter fraud, you name it. They have a video that explains it. And it's not going to tell you, you know, it gives you both sides of the story. See, that's one thing you'll notice about wokeness, is that there's only one side. It's their side. And if you're not woke, then you're a racist or a homophobe or whatever it is. It's just, they just, you know, you're white supremacist, you know, you're a hater. Okay? So if you're not woke, you're a hater. And so there is no other side of the story. You can't get the other side of the story out. So we try to get the other side of the story out. And so that's what these 5-minute videos do. So instead of listening to me blither on, I really have to learn to slow down. Sometimes I get all wound up. But, okay, so we're going to go to the videos, and hopefully when I come back, I'll remember the name of the guy whose book I couldn't remember. But, so Without further ado, we're going to go to the first video, which is going to be Nikki Haley and Be Brave. The second video is going to be Greg Leonkoff and Does Free Feast Offend You? And then Brent Bozell, Big Tech, Big Brother, Big Trouble, baby. We're in big trouble. Okay, so without any further ado, we'll go to the movie.
I know what it's like to walk into a room where plain truth seems like a foreign concept, where just speaking your mind can feel daunting, where the founding principles of the United States of America are openly ridiculed. For 2 years, I served as the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Just to give you an idea of how strange things can get at the UN, consider that the Human Rights Council is dominated by some of the world's worst human rights offenders, countries like China, Cuba, and Venezuela. True democracies like Israel are routinely abused, and America, the nation that has protected the God-given rights of hundreds of millions of people all over the globe, is openly criticized. Why am I telling you this? Because most college campuses have become as anti-American, which is to say morally backward, as the UN. And the only person who can set it right side up is you. If that sounds like I'm asking you to shoulder a heavy burden, that's because I am. I wouldn't be asking if I didn't think you were up to it. I fully believe that you are. I've spoken at a lot of colleges. I'm convinced that most of the students still have a strong, intuitive love of our country. That's why I'm optimistic about America's future. But I know that it's hard to speak out. I know the academic establishment is against you. I didn't say this was going to be easy. It is, however, going to be necessary. So what is it that I'm asking you to do? Be brave. Defend your right to speak out. Defend America to your friends, in class, around campus, wherever you go. Speaking out doesn't mean being rude, and of course it never means resorting to violence. It means having the facts and saying the truth with clarity and purpose. And if you're saying the truth, don't back down, even if your classmates or professor, or in my case, the representatives of 193 governments, try to make you look foolish. Defending America means you need to know American history. Given how poorly that history is taught these days, you might have to supplement your education. Start with the primary sources, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, George Washington's farewell speech, the Gettysburg Address, and Lincoln's second inaugural. And build out from there. Discover America's history for yourself. Make up your own mind. Always remember that you're comparing America to reality, not to utopia. Also remember that you have to judge people in the context of their time, not by the standards of our time. If you do that, I have every confidence you'll find yourself loving this country as much as I do. America has a great story to tell, but first you have to have the courage to tell it. What the fight for racial equality was to prior generations, the fight for free speech and intellectual freedom is to your generation. You are on the front line. You are the rebel. Never before in my lifetime can I remember when more Americans were as stifled or as constantly told what they're allowed to think and what they're allowed to say. And what are we allowed to say in America? What sorts of fashionable ideas are considered sophisticated by our top universities? So often, they're the very same ones espoused by the thugs on the Human Rights Council. That America is racist, that capitalism, the only economic system to lift billions of people out of poverty, is the source of our problems, that socialism is bliss, that freedom of speech is not that important. These are very bad ideas. They're also dead wrong. There is no question that America can and should improve. That's the hard work we have in front of us. But the constant slandering of American democracy and the opportunity it offers to everyone is a one-way street to a much worse future. We don't need to remake America into something different. America isn't perfect. It's also not an accident that we are the most generous, most prosperous, and most free country for people of every race, ethnicity, and religion in world history. In my time in the UN, I got to know countries where there are no protections for speech. Countries where you risk a lot more than online harassment or a bad grade if you oppose the ruling party positions. Everything of value comes with a price, but that price will be worth it because America is worth it. Speaking the truth is often difficult, so it takes courage to do so. Many have died to preserve America and liberty. No one's asking you to risk your life, but it is now your generation's turn to step up, or you will lose both your country and your freedom. I'm Nikki Haley for Prager University.
This video was made possible by a generous grant from Colorado Christian University. PragerU subscribers may be eligible for a $1,000 scholarship for courses taken through CCU Online. Learn more at prageru.com/CCU.
Freedom of speech, the ability to express yourself. It's a cherished idea, as well it should be. Most of us who live in liberal Western democracies think of it as a basic human right. People have fought and died for it. But now we may be in danger of losing it. The threat is not coming from without, from external enemies, but from within. A generation is being raised not to believe in freedom of speech, but rather that they should have freedom from speech they dislike. This is a threat to both pluralism and democracy itself. We see this in Europe, where sensitivity-based censorship attempts to ban anything deemed hateful or even just hurtful, and to ban criticism of religion, especially Islam. But the United States, despite its strong constitutional protections in the Bill of Rights, is far from immune from the rising trend of suppression of speech, or what is sometimes called political correctness. This is especially true at America's colleges and universities, the place where our future leaders are educated and where you'd expect speech to be the most free. Highly restrictive speech codes are now the norm on campus, not the exception. According to a study by my organization, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, 54% of public universities and 59% of private universities impose politically correct speech codes on their students. And thanks to recent Department of Education guidelines, 100% of colleges may adopt speech codes in the coming years. How bad is it? At a public campus in California on Constitution Day in 2013, a student who also happens to be a decorated military veteran was told he could not hand out copies of the Constitution to his fellow students. The objection from the university was not ideological. It was out-of-control bureaucracy imposing limits on speech. That same day, another college student in that same state was told he could not protest NSA surveillance outside of a tiny free speech zone, an area that comprised only 1.37% of the campus. Months later, college students in Hawaii were told both they could not hand out the Constitution to their fellow students, and that they could not protest NSA policies outside the school's free speech zone. FIRE took these colleges to court, but the fact that we had to shows you how bad it has become. Recently, students and sympathetic faculty have joined forces to exclude campus speakers whose opinions they dislike. At FIRE, we call this disinvitation season, although the season lasts all year round. Since 2009, there has been a major uptick in the push by students and faculty to get speakers they dislike disinvited. These speakers have included former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, the Somali-born feminist and critic of Islam Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and the director of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. And that's only the obvious part of the disinvitation problem. Few conservative speakers are invited to speak at colleges lest they have to be disinvited later. The newest threat to speech comes from so-called trigger warnings, alerts that warn students that they are about to read or hear something that triggers a negative emotional response. A 2014 New York Times article cited the example of a Rutgers student requesting trigger warnings for the classic American novel The Great Gatsby because it, quote, possesses a variety of scenes that reference abusive, misogynistic violence, unquote. Recently, Oberlin College attempted to institute a policy that heavily encouraged the faculty to avoid difficult topics and to employ trigger warnings as a means of making classrooms safer. Safety has been watered down to essentially mean the right to always feel comfortable. New demands for trigger warnings are popping up on campuses across the country. Add in popular academic theories that encourage students to scrutinize speech for microaggressions, any statement that might be construed as racially insensitive, classist, sexist, or otherwise un-PC, and it's clear that campuses are teaching students to police what they say. This is precisely the opposite of what is needed. Our society needs candor, and it needs freedom of speech, not freedom from speech. Intellectual comfort is not a right, nor should it ever be. Not if we want freedom of speech. Let's just call it freedom to survive. I'm Greg Lukianoff, president of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education for Prager University.
The year is 1984. One company, Microsoft, dominates the computer world. It's their way or the highway, conform or die. This snapshot in time was perfectly captured in one of the most famous commercials in TV history. Set in a gray dystopian future, row after row of men stare blankly at a giant screen from which Big Brother, the all-powerful leader from George Orwell's classic novel 1984, addresses them. Suddenly, riot police burst into the hall, chasing a beautiful blonde woman in a white shirt and red shorts. Before they can grab her, she hurls a sledgehammer into the screen, shattering Big Brother and his grip on the masses. The narrator informs us that Apple's breakthrough product, the Macintosh computer, will be the device that sets us all free. Looking back, Apple largely lived up to its promise. A new wave of companies, each in its own way, followed the example set by Apple's legendary CEO, Steve Jobs. Google gave us instant access to vast amounts of information. Facebook gave us a new way to connect with friends, family, and the world. Twitter brought this world to us in real time. And YouTube allowed anyone with a smartphone to become a virtual broadcast network onto themselves. It was glorious and empowering. But that was yesterday. Today, it's 1984 all over again. Big Brother is back with an important twist. Our former liberators now want to be our masters. Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, the giants of social media, are demanding conformity to their values. It's their way or the highway. Conform or die. This image is perfectly captured, not by an ad, but by this recent real-life scene. Row after row of men and women stare up at Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, as he makes a presentation, ironically before a civil rights group. We only have one message for those who seek to push hate, division, and violence. You have no place on our platforms, Cook tells his audience. You have no home here. Hate? Division? According to whom? The answer is obvious. According to Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. They are becoming the Big Brother Orwell foresaw. Conform or die. Cook's ideas are exactly the same as his fellow chief executives at Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Disagree with Big Brother on, say, politics or morality, and Big Brother will shut you up by shutting you down. And what is it that Big Brother doesn't like? Well, Tim Cook said it. Anything that doesn't conform to his left-wing worldview. The examples are numerous and growing. Megan Murphy, a Canadian feminist, is permanently banned from Twitter for refusing to refer to the transgendered by their preferred pronoun and for writing, "Women aren't men." Google, Facebook, and Twitter all at various times refused to carry political ads from Tennessee Republican candidate Marsha Blackburn promoting her conservative views. She's hardly the only one this has happened to. And as many of you know, YouTube continues to restrict over 100 of PragerU's videos, finding them inappropriate for children. These include titles like, "Why Did America Fight the Korean War?" Broad-based studies by the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology and by Northwestern University have confirmed what these examples clearly suggest: bias against conservatives at Google and other big tech sites. And this is the bias we can plainly see. What we don't see, what Big Brother hides from us, what is referred to as shadow banning, may be even more pernicious. If you're on the left, maybe you're okay with this, but if you're not on the left, or even if you are and you revere the First Amendment, you should be concerned, very concerned. We are advancing swiftly toward an Orwellian 1984 world of stifling one way of thinking conformity. This time, it's not a fictional story. It's real. What's the solution? Simply return to the open market of ideas that served big tech so well for so long. Stop the censorship and let people make up their own minds. Otherwise, America and the rest of what has been known as the free world will cease to be free. That's how serious the big tech threat is. I'm Brent Bozell, founder of the Media Research Center for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To help keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Freedom of speech, the ability to express yourself.
Okay, welcome back. So, again, there's so much information out there, so much, and yet as Brent Bozell expressed, the high-tech folks are obliterating, obfuscating, opposing points of view and basically the facts of the issue. How can you have an intelligent debate, discussion, and dialogue when half of the information is missing? It just cannot be done. Again, they made so many good points. It's freedom of speech, not freedom from speech. If you don't like what you're hearing, again, I have to endure 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, listening to the mind-numbing woke culture from every sector of, from government officials, elected, appointed, to Hollywood, to the media and the TV shows. It is abhorrent what they do with entertainment and infuse all this woke stupidity in there. It's kind of like what Nikki was talking about. We have to look at this stuff and we got to stop supporting things that are unhealthy to us, unhealthy to the truth and the American way. We got to do it. And free speech, we need to speak. We need to take a stand and exercise our free speech whenever we can. That's why I do this show, and I don't do it for me. I'm old, retired, over the hill, but for the kids and the grandkids, that's why I do this. I want to make sure that people are aware that there are two sides to the issue. Every issue, from vaccines to academics and college, school curriculums, school boards, decisions, face masks, you name it. We really need to make sure that all the facts are on the table. As we speak, Danvers is getting ready to hire, $100,000 plus a year salaried manager for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion manager to do we really need this? We have the wokeness is, we all understand the issue. We just need to just all be able to work together. We don't need to hire someone else to tell us how to do it. You don't know how to be a normal person? You need someone to tell you. Oh, again, we've come a long way with our free speech. You know, I mean, there seemed to be a little bit more respect and dignity back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah, we're growing. You know, there's always, you know, why is it that, as one of the speakers said, they find injustice in everything. They find racism in everything. It's like, no, you know, yeah, America needs to improve. Yeah, we're never going to be perfect. So we have to just keep striving for good and not keep focusing on negativity and negativity and negativity. To stop someone from speaking, you know, this, as one guy put it, when I was researching all this stuff, he said, I think it was Jerry Rubin, Mark Rubin, I forget his name, but he went to speak at Berkeley. And with all the hate and anger from these Antifa woke people, whatever you want to call them, the freedom from speech woke people, they had to spend over $6,000 on security just so that he could speak. Really? Who's causing all the problems? It's the people. Like, apparently, like the trigger warnings and everything else and microaggressions, they're more afraid that it might happen than what actually happens. I don't know. Yeah. We need a dialogue. We'll need a discussion, but are we really allowed to speak? We'll see. But again, so that's how it was back then. And today we just burn, and yell and scream and call people racist. And again, you know, it's all about acceptance of restrictions on free speech for any reason. You know, are we being educated? Are we being indoctrinated? Look at the information you're getting. Look at the information that you're not getting. Do you have questions and you try to find the information and you can't find it? You got to dig. It's very hard to find the truth. Very, very hard. And again, this 1619 project has been going on for years. And when did you find out about it? I mean, how long has this been going on? If not a decade. I mean, I can remember in 2015 testifying in front of the Mass Board of Education about Common Core education and their exemplar words that they wanted to, and this is exactly what they've done. The exemplar words in the educational system. So when you're learning math, it's just, math is, and science, that math and science. They're facts and figures. You can't dispute those. You put in the numbers, you put in the formulas, and that's it. Science is science. They tell us to follow the science. That's the science. But they thread in these woke concepts and woke words into the sciences, and I guess that's why they call it political science. They've politicized science. We can't have an intelligent discussion with Dr. Fauci, and I'd like to see Dr. Fauci and Senator Rand Paul, front and center. They've had discussions about the vaccines and about the masks and about all these shutdowns and everything else that's going on. But have you heard about? No, they don't. See, if the fake news doesn't report it, then it didn't happen. Fauci has lied to Congress. Fauci has lied to the Senate, but there is no, because he's on the woke side, there's no consequences. If you're woke, you're fine. But someone like General Flynn, who lied but really didn't lie, he was in jail for 3 years and spent millions of dollars. His life and family were ruined. But that's because he's a conservative. We have a general now, General Milley. Yeah, he's so worried about making sure everybody's woke. He didn't even know how to figure out how to exit Afghanistan in a timely, properly fashion. Any person on the street would tell you, oh, you're going to leave the country militarily, then you get the civilians out first, get all your equipment out, and then you take the military protection out. They took the military protection out, left all the equipment, left all the people. You can't be that incompetent. You got to be corrupt or incompetent, take your pick. Either way, they all should be fired. Someone's head should be rolling for what happened there. 13 servicemen died, and hundreds of other people are trapped and suffering pain. It's horrendous. But because it's a woke, then apparently it's okay. It's okay. So again, I mean, I try not to get too excited about this, but I really need you to understand that you're not being told the truth, you're being lied to, and it's very hard to understand what our country is really about if we don't understand the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and how that all works together. But because I try to focus more on the good news and not the bad news, I got to slow myself down. And we really have to look at life as, what are we here for? We just here, to live, die, and there's the end of it? Or if you believe in heaven, then how is it? Well, where is it, and how do you get there? Everybody's got a different idea, but I believe in the biblical way of getting to heaven. So everyone's got a plan for your life. You want to do something, your family wants you to do something else, your boss wants you to do, everybody wants to direct you how to run your life. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for all your decisions and what you do and what happens, okay? So that's why we need to know. It's like the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to endure the things I can't change, and to accept the things, to endure to change the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. Geez, I'm losing my mind. But we need more serenity now, as George would say from Seinfeld. But, everybody's got a plan for your life, and God has a plan for your life. The enemy has a plan for your life. You got to be ready for both. Just be wise enough to know which one to battle and which one to embrace. Got to focus on the good and repel the bad and the evil, because that's basically what it is. It's like freedom of speech. Our words and these high-tech platforms, they're all tools, and like any tool, a tool can be used for good, it can be used for evil. It's that simple. Okay? I mean, we all need to be able to, simply put, there was a book out once, Everything I Needed for Life I Learned in Kindergarten. We all need to learn to play nice in the sandbox. Can't we just play nice in the sandbox? Or do we have to, yell and scream and burn things down and threaten and intimidate and bully? Because that's what the woke is doing. If you say something they don't like, it's bullying, and they're on the offense. It's always push. Never relentless. During the Christmas season, any season you want, it just keeps going. So that's why we're on the defense. We're always on the defense. Whoa, wait a minute. We never get it. And when we get the ball, even our own rhinos and people take us down because the enemy has done a good job. He's deceived them all, deceived us all. No one knows what's right and what's wrong anymore. That's why you got to find out for yourself. So without any further ado, I am going to go. I gotta leave the bad news. We're gonna finish up with the good news here. And the good news is it's Christmas. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Christmas is here. And the music of Christmas, I love it. Joy to the world, oh come all ye faithful, and silent night, holy night. All is calm, all is bright. We focus on the good stuff. God, family, and country. And, our country is our freedom. And again, but the gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ, our Lord. So if you want to read about it, go to Romans chapter 6, verse 23. You got to read the whole thing. But with that, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll pick this up again in January 2022. And it's going to be an election year, off season. We got local elections, we got statewide elections. So let's, as some ex-CNN would, let's get to it. Okay. Good night, Danvers. Love you. Gotta go. Bye.